we now come on to the Philidor, which is a setup that black tries to play generally with e5, d6, knight d7, knight f6, and taking on d4. Now, for this Grandmaster Gambits course, we're only covering those four main sort of opening moves, which is e4, e5, which we're including in the Philidor here, the Caracan, the French, and the Petrov. So in part two, whoa, there's going to be a part two. We're going to be in that segment covering d6. Now, I just want to make that clear because d6 is the move that I recommend in the Black Line course on chessboard. Very fun opening. And the Black Line is where there's a bit of a crossover, can transpose into the Philidor into the Black Line. So d6, I'm afraid we're not covering in this course. That's going to come a little bit later. We're just doing the main moves in this course, which I think I made clear in the introduction. But if you're wondering why I'm not looking at the Black Line or the Black Line move order, it's coming later on. So the move order we're particularly, just concentrating on is e5. And obviously we play knight to f3. And now d6, this move here. Now, the thing with this, which I'm not an expert in this position, I'll be honest. This is one position I had to be educated a bit by Richard Palliser in, and I know what I mean. When I say I'm not an expert, I know quite a lot about it because I know what black wants to do, and I know what the main line is here. But some of the sidelines I'm certainly haven't been aware of because I don't play this position as black. And when I play this with white, I will play d4 generally up to this point. So I go into those positions. But Richard has found a very interesting approach and brought it to my eyes. And it's really nice because it fits in very consistently with everything else we've learned so far. So rather than playing the most popular d4 move, we're going to play bishop c4 yet again. And this move, bishop c4, is what we're doing most of the time. And we're doing it here. And it's got some very interesting ideas. And after this move, I just want to point out that black can now not get the black line set up. He can't get what he wants in this move order. So if black uses this move order to try and get these two moves in, he's not going to be able to do that because the bishop on c4 gives white a little bit more extra time to attack f7. So even if you do play d4, this bishop c4 move order I think is a better move order because we can always play d4, but it's much trickier because we got ideas of knight g5 in a lot of variations. And if black plays, for example, knight to f6 here, which is going to be looked at later on, he's got to watch out for those ideas. But there's also another move, which we'll come to, d4. I mean, there's lots of ways that we're going to, but d4 here, then knight here, and then knight g5. For example, knight g5 is coming. So there's just some very subtle move order things. It's quite hard to explain, but I think maybe if we just look at the lines that you can play as black against bishop c4, you'll understand what I mean. What I mean is, let's say you go d4 in this position. Well, the main line Philidor takes here anyway. There are some ideas with this one, knight c3, knight here. And this is now, after bishop here, bishop e7, what I like getting with the black pieces, with the idea of h6 and g5 later on, for example. Here, black line idea. But we're just stopping all of this in this course. Okay, let's have a look at some lines. I think it will become clearer what I mean when we go into the variations. So first of all, knight f6, which is quite a big move, really, is going to be looked at in a separate video because it's such a sort of normal looking move to play, And another move, bishop e7, is also a very normal looking move to play because it stops this one and it's trying to get developed in a normal way. So this is also looked at a separate video. So in this one, we're just going to look after bishop c4 at those other options. Now, c6 is a typical Philidor idea where black often wants to bring the queen here, play b5. But it seems a little bit slow in this setup. Black's not developing any pieces. And now we want to just play d4 here. Because, again, black can't get maybe the ideal setup that he wants. So, for example, after this move, if black tries to play knight d7, which is aiming for that black lying setup, well, we can actually play knight g5. And this is the move which is really difficult for black to handle if black's not paying attention. This is a simple idea. And this is very direct. You could also, if you want to, take on e5 straight away, but I don't think there's any need to do that. This direct move forces knight h6. And now black's got a bit of a funny setup. And now we're going to castle. And our idea is to, again, as throughout this course, prioritize development over, over some other more slower ideas. And in this position, prioritize them break f4. So it's a very unique position. Kingside development supporting f4, and we're going for the most aggressive kind of approach to the position that we can. Now, again, numerous moves here. Now, what about, for example, b5? Well, b5, we just keep the bishop on that diagonal. And b5 is a move that black often wants to play. And it's often considered that if black is able to play this move, black's gained something. But this is not a normal position because black's got the knight over here and f4 is coming quickly. And after bishop e7, which you may think is like a good move, right? There's quite an incredible idea here. And this is a lovely trick involved around the knight being on this square. And the trick is now knight to e6, completely unique. And this works in these lines because of that knight on h6. It's shocking. What is the point? Well, if this one is taken, then we can come in with bishop takes h6. And if this one's taken, we come in with check, and then we come in with check. And you can just see how this is probably going to end for black, right? You know, for example, something like that. So this is well worth remembering. And we'll have a look at this idea a little bit more detail about putting the bishop on the square in a second, just in case you're wondering a bit more about those variations there. But b5, bishop b3, bishop e7, this knight e6 is very annoying. So b5 is normally a useful move, but it's not very critical in this line because there's many more problems that black is facing over here. So what about instead, let's say queen c7? And this is another move that black wants to play. And I know this because the black line. Well, again, I think white can now, and our idea in these lines is try to be disruptive as possible. f4, very interesting. But I think even queen f3 is a better way to play the position because we're just targeting here. Black hasn't managed to get the knight to f6. And now black has to move the knight on d7 in order to defend that one. So knight b6, we can drop back. We're happy to sacrifice this pawn. And now let's see how much of the course you've really learned ideas-wise so far. When there's a pawn on d4, how can you, what is often a common move if you don't win that pawn back to liberate your pieces, open up the position? That's one thing we want to do. Get your, basically open a position, get your pieces in the game. It is the move c3. So if you sort of suggest this move, well done. You're on the right way with this course. We've seen this a lot earlier on in the course. And after d takes, knight takes c3. And here, with the bishop coming to f4, the rook coming to d1, the queen coming to g3, it's excellent play for the pawn. And also, the reason that I think this is totally sound, this sacrifice. And again, this is all very rare stuff. Is we've got to again think, what is our opponent going to play here? He can't get castled easily because just something on f7, maybe bishop takes this, is even stronger there. So what can he play? And it's not easy. His knights are very bad. His bishop can come here, but then we continue queen g3, and we have excellent compensation. We've even got this move still because of the bishop, and you can see the play that's coming on. So after, again, this idea, bishop c4, c6, d4, and now we move on with, let's have a look at that last line, knight d7. Now we're going to play knight g5, knight h6 forced, castling, and now queen c7, queen f3, looks very nice. b5, bishop b3, looks very nice. And what about bishop? Oh, well, we can also look at pawn takes here, and we're going to look at these positions a lot. Black often plays this move in the Philidor. Well, here queen takes d4. I mean, c3 is another move you might want to experiment with, but in this case, maybe knight here is okay. But queen takes knight e5, and now we just go bishop b3 again. And I think you can see another point of this knight now. f4 is very, very scary. We're playing f4 next move. The opponent's king is stuck in the middle, and we're just coming forwards straight at him. So this also seems like a bad way for black to play. And the last option is bishop e7, and now we're going to see this idea again, knight e6. I really like this idea. This, by the way, knight e6, as a rule, works when the knight is on h6, right? Because we can take that knight. This knight has to be taken because we're threatening the queen and g7. And now bishop takes h6. And here, let's have a look at this line. First of all, where the bishop is taken again. Well, our queen comes in. And, well, we looked at the line last time we took on h6. In actual fact, bishop takes e6 is even stronger. And this actually just forces mate straight away. We don't go for the check. We go here. I mean, we could pick that pawn up first, I feel, and it would still be winning. Yeah, because we can come back. But there's no way to stop these, well, queen f7, really, because this one now runs into this checkmate. What a nice move, bishop, what knight e6 is. So after bishop takes here, black has to try something else. And bishop f6 is kind of the only logical move I can see here. When we can continue, bishop takes e6. And that bishop is still not able to be captured because our queen comes in here. And after queen e7, well, we're now a pawn up. And after we just get rid of that one, bishop e3, this is a safe extra pawn. Black doesn't have compensation. I mean, if black tries grabbing on e4, he's going to lose the queen. So again, this little bishop c4 move, a little bit annoying for black because c6, d4, he can't get the positions he wants because, of course, after knight d7, we have knight g5. Now, if he goes knight f6, then, well, I mean, this maybe has the idea of taking on e4, but we go knight g5. And this is another idea where black has played the wrong move order. This pretty much forces d5, and now we can take this one here. And the problem that black has is we're going to have a check and taking on e5 in this position. So we can put that on the board. If he takes here, we just give a check. We take on e5. This check can be bet by knight c3, and we're attacking and a pawn up. So going back to this one, e takes d5, h6 can maybe be played, but then we just keep going forwards. Let's take that one. And after knight c3, we're doing very well. Pawn up with the better pieces. If I was white here, I'd probably want to be going queenside. That file scares me a little bit. So I will go bishop e3, queen d2, go queenside. And also my rook would be very good on that file. So the last thing that after c6, d4 that can be played is pawn takes d4. And in general, I think taking with the queen is quite often early on how we want to do this, because our knight is quite good here, still having ideas of coming to g5. And, you know, black has to be very careful. That knight is looking at getting there. We have 3 pieces developed. Knight d7, well, we can consider knight g5 again, as we've seen, but also some simple development of bringing out the last 2 pieces. Seems very good. We've got everything developed, and I'm not sure how black is going to be able to defend this position. We might even be able to break with e5, because we're looking at ways to break when we have the extra development. So I don't like e takes d4 there, and that means that c6 doesn't work. Now bishop e6 is kind of a move I don't think anyone over a certain grade would play. And the simple solution to this is double those pawns and now play d4. And this is not any theoretical thing, because these pawns are pretty rugged. The idea will be to just target that weakness quickly. I mean, often this pawn structure is not bad for black when he has full development, but as he hasn't got any pieces developed, he can't keep those pawns safe. He's got to really take here. And after this one, well, he can maintain his center now. He shouldn't be losing a pawn. But, I mean, some decent players have played this as well, but I just don't believe this position. I really like white's strong knight, and black's king is quite weak now. He has no f-pawn. Some moves have been played. Now, for a start, e5 has been played, but it's just a bad move. It was actually played by international master Peter Large, Hastings tournament, 1986-7. And it actually, after knight e6, queen e7, well, now rather than grabbing that bishop, there's an even better move. That knight is such an octopus in the middle of the board. You don't want to move it if you can help it. And now white found a clever way to keep it there. Check, g6, queen h3. And this is better than going to g4, where the queen might be hit by the knight. And the pressure can be increased here, with the white knight naturally coming in and the white bishop coming in. And you will therefore see every white piece playing a major part on the demolition of black's position. It's absolutely horrendous, this structure. So, I mean, I don't like this for white, for black, so I don't know why I'm trying to defend it with various moves. Knight f6 is an unplayed move, trying to create some havoc here, even, you know, at some point with the queen coming in. But I actually quite like f4 here, funnily enough. And if this pawn is taken, our queen will do the damage. And after something like this, f5, very direct. And the idea of this, again, is to get the octopus into the position. Knight f6 is just bad. So last option, black defends that pawn. And now I like this discombobulator again. Queen check. And after g6, queen h3. Very nice maneuver. And the point, as we've seen, is that knight comes into this square, and this is a beautiful square. Maybe black can play knight c6, trying to swap that one off. And there's a very nice move given by the computer, and that is because the other idea, you know, once this knight is, you know, exchanged, the queens come off. So if we just sidestep over here, we can now not fear any of these knight moves. And in some cases, we might grab there. We're just going to continue developing. That knight is so strong. And if knight a5 to try and annoy us, we can go queen d5. And here, well, after c6, we can take on f8. And we get some force sequence like this. This actually occurred. I mean, some grandmasters have played this kind of way as black. Van der Weer against Cifuentes Parada in the Olympiad in 1990. But white is just doing nicely here with this knight so badly placed. And one of our main ideas here is to castle and play f4. And that's what's going to guarantee us an advantage once we get that break in to open up our bishop. So bishop e6 just doesn't look very well to me. Now, Queen f6 has actually been played by Julian Hodgson at Hastings. And there's some funny ideas involved with this move, trying to get some kind of black line setup. But I've also had this by Andy Smith played against me in a very similar game. He's a very original player from England. But it does look very funny, and it's really inviting us to just play normal moves with tempo. And of course, d4 is such a move to play. You don't have to step back from playing d4. d4 is a move we often go for. We're just not playing it a move earlier because we feel the bishop here is more testing for black, because it gives us more options of bringing the knight around to this square. And now I don't really see the point of black's queen being here. Bishop g4 has been tried, but let's go for simple development. When your opponent does a peculiar move against you, you don't need to panic and try to force the win. Just play good developing moves. Your position will get better and better. And after c6, blocking that one, again, another sensible move. And after knight d7, now I would play queen d2. And I'm even happy I've got a castle queenside. I'm going for maximum, maybe threatening bishop g5 now. And after my opponent grabs on f3, rook g1. And this, I feel, has very promising compensation with bishop e2 and castles happening. We're a pawn down, but our opponent can't develop standard kind of sacrificial position here. So queen f6 doesn't look right. Bishop g4, and this is not in general a good move. We just saw it being played a minute ago. I don't ever feel this is the way, you know, black should be playing. And because I don't think black wants to give up this light square bishop with our bishop being so strong, because then we're left with that bishop that black can never fight against. I think he needs to have potential to fight against our light square bishop. And after this move, I would just suggest d4. And this is very pleasant. Again, if bishop takes f3, we take with a queen. And this actually occurred in that famous game, and Morphy. So it was Morphy, the opera game. Morphy versus the Duke and Count encounter. And after this one, well, I'm not going to show that whole game. I've done a free video on that for Chessable. You can go and look at it there. But this one is one of the most famous games ever, the opera game. And this giving up the light square bishop, as I mentioned before, look how strong that one is there. But what else can be played? If pawn takes d4, well, now that black's moved the bishop here, rather than taking that pawn back, I'm going to go for our often first choice move against that pawn when it gets that square. And our first choice move often is c3. Going for ideas with queen b3, because I feel that black's wasting moves here and I want to get my guys in the game. And if pawn takes queen b3, we now have this double attack, and this is horrible for black. This is a very good version of the Danish gambit here. Other moves here, well, knight d7 maybe can be attempted, but now I'm just going to force that bishop to either swap itself when we have that lovely light square play, and if it goes back, well, we can simply develop, but I kind of like d takes e5, simple chess, and this may also encourage your opponent to play knight takes, which is what we want to do. If he goes d takes, which is much safer, then something like queen e2 has been played before. And the reason for this is to quickly get a rook to d1. And we just compare light square bishops, and we see that we're in a pin here, but it's not a good pin. Our bishop is lovely, giving us an edge. And after something like castles, rook d1, then we can now often maneuver our knight in typical fashion around here. Let's look at some more moves. Let's go a4, stopping b5. And I'm now going to do this one. And when black castles, it means, and this is a good point, that g4 becomes a lot more tempting, because we don't have to worry about the rook opening up on the h-file. And now this is a very normal idea to bring our knights into the position. Bit more maneuvering, but again, we're doing well. So all these lines, they're all a bit odd. I mean, the last one I'm going to come to is h6, and maybe this is again black saying, okay, I want to get a black line, but he's done it in a weird move order. And against a lot of these weird moves where black plays a funny idea, we do come in the center and we do play very aggressively. And here, d4 looks like precisely the right thing to do. We're rushing to open up lines. And if e takes d4 in this position, well, again, taking on d4 is fine, and we've seen this many times before. I often want to play queen takes, but normally when the knight's on d7, right? In this position, knight c6, it gains a tempo. But the other thing we've seen often when black has wasted moves like this, we've also seen c3. And c3 here seems, again, like a fantastic gambit choice that black won't be ready for. We'll come to that in a minute. Now, knight d7 may be the only other choice that can be played, but there's major problems on this square. And here we can just open our way up to that square. D takes e5. Now, I just realized I should have showed you. Okay, I just realized, sorry, in that last line, there's a lot of lines to look at. I'll go back here first of all, that after this last line with h3 and pawn takes here, I forgot to show you what happens when knight takes e5, which I think I suddenly realized I forgot. Sometimes it gets a little bit confusing at my end. Well, against this move, we have knight takes e5, and I have to show this line, obviously. We give our queen, and now we have, funnily enough, bishop takes, and we don't, unfortunately, have the standard checkmate, but we can play bishop takes g8, and the threat is bishop g5. And this is actually very bad for black, funnily enough. There's no good ways that black can really stop this. So I just wanted to throw that one in there as well, just in case you're wondering about it. So let's go back to h6 again. And this problem with knight d7 takes. Now, if knight takes, the standard trick is to take on f7 check, winning the queen. And now, if pawn takes, we can even play bishop takes f7 anyway, because this h6 square weakens a lot of the light squares there. Our knight comes in check. And where can that king go? The only way it can survive due to these problems is coming up. And we have a very nice idea now. Again, going back to our philosophy, we can't use our developed pieces, bring in the reinforcements, knight c3. And if king takes e5, then we have lots of checks. Let's check it out. In we come. And it's a killer with, I'll let you work out the rest there. You've got to do a little bit of work yourselves, guys. And if indeed in this position we go back, we take here, let's have a look at that one more time. After knight here, black plays something more sensible like bishop here. Well, queen to d4, and we're threatening a deadly check with our knight in these positions, and there's no way black can handle that because the pin here, if his king runs away, we got this check. So it's all tragic. And after d4 takes, this c3 move I like so much. It's a tempo up in a Dutch, in a Danish or Scotch. I was trying to put those words together there, gambit. And this is a way to keep it quite unique. Now, the critical test is clearly taking here. If knight to f6, well, I feel like we should now offer the pawn on d4, on e4. And if black grabs that pawn, we can still play queen b3. And this is the idea often involved with c3. And unlike other gambits, black's kind of wasted a move here. And when we castle, it's clear to see just how dangerous this position has come for black. One thing maybe to think of here is that we don't want to allow black to stabilize these pawns. So rather than allowing him to play d5, we should play d5. And now things are going to happen very quickly. So after c3, pawn takes c3. Well, I mean, you could castle here with a turbo Danish gambit, if you know the Danish gambit. The Danish gambit comes about after the moves e4, e5, d4, takes here, not there, sorry, c3. This is, I'm sure you noticed, takes bishop here, and you get this as the Danish gambit. But here the bishop can come out, and black hasn't played c6. Now, if we go to our line, and we go back here, well, we've got a couple of extra tempos, so we can castle quickly. Black's played h6. Okay, that stops our knight coming in, but it also, as we've seen, weakens the king a little bit. And very importantly, his bishop can't come out. So even if we did, you know, if you want to be adventurous, you could castle here, and you could try to get this Danish position where, I mean, we're going to blow the whole board, set it alight there, blow it up. And this must be bad. But I think even I prefer just the simple knight c3. So we only keep it to a one pawn sacrifice. And this, again, it just very free-flowing moves. With castles coming, e5 coming in, queen b3 ideas. It's again, I think it's looking very nice. So knight c6 is the best move. And if black plays a move like knight f6, always the thing to look out for is e5. And there is, yet again, this tactic with bishop f7. One little thing to bear in mind is that if this knight wasn't on c3, this tactic doesn't work. But because the knight here, it does work. And this is a Danish gambit thing, where bishop b4, as long as it's not check, we're fine. But if that's check, we will lose our queen back. So you've got to watch out for that one. And this e5 move is just very strong. So what else? Well, let's go back to knight c6. And here, if we go queen b3, black can play queen d7. And the annoying thing with these positions is he might get our light square bishop. So I think saving that as a threat makes more sense. And playing castles kingside first is just increasing the heat yet again. And now knight to f6 is, well, black's got to develop. Let's have a look at other ways he can try and develop. Well, bishop g4, we haven't mentioned this one. And here, I would always just play h3. We can allow this one here with lots of compensation. And even if we lose our light squared bishop, we have major compensation based on rook d1 and e5 in this position. I'll go over these points again at the end. These lines, I'm going through it a little bit quicker, and the reason for that is I just don't think they're very good for black. These are all sidelines. And, you know, rather than memorizing all these things, which I want to roll through once, I think the general principles are just trying to punish black if he plays too many pawn moves at the start of the game are things that are more important for you to bear in mind. Don't be afraid to sacrifice, but we'll go with general principles a bit later on. For example, knight f6, rook d1. And this is actually very tricky with e5 coming. Black can't get safe. So let's have a look at the gambit a little bit more with a simple move. Now, e5's not as effective here because black's got an extra piece out. So it's time to go queen b3. And now black should move his queen to d7 because queen e7 allows knight d5, which would be opening up the position really badly for black on the e file. So queen d7 clearly best. And again here, there's no immediate way through. But one of the reasons we castled, as we just saw, is to play e5. e5, interesting here. I don't fully believe it. But rook d1 first is just preparing that strong idea. It takes black 2 moves to castle, and that's quite a lot of moves. I think he should grab our bishop here. He can't even play this one because of bishop f7. And after he grabs our bishop on c4, again, e5's the threat. So I think queen c6 is as good as move as any. And now, after queen d3, white enjoys a vast amount of compensation because he's got this move coming in, even knight d4. There was one game, Kras versus Volbrucker, 1949. And again, we're trying to find the most aggressive moves for you here, which continued bishop g4, otherwise e5. And now white changed plans, knight to d4, queen d7, f3, bishop e6, bishop e3. Blacks managed to defend a little bit with this move, but now knight takes e6, and it's already quite difficult because we're going to have ideas of f4 and e5, and we can actually regain our pawn in this way here, and we keep that initiative. So again, I mean, like I say, I've gone through this a little bit quicker than I have done the other lines, but the point of that is, after bishop c4, black's got to be very, very careful. Now, as you've seen, I don't like bishop e6 because we capture and we try to get our knight cemented on that square. And when our knight gets there, we can cement it with this queen maneuver. Now, knight f6 and bishop e7 are analysed a little bit later on. Now, c6 is, in my opinion, one of the worst moves. It's a move you often want to play later on in the Philidor, but you just don't have time here. And now we play d4, and we've kind of tricked black, because I don't think he wouldn't play c6, he went d4 straight away. But we have this extra attacking piece, and with ideas here of knight g5, castling, and those kind of principles we saw, black's really struggling. Now, if he plays queen f6, well, just d4. I don't understand this queen d6. We can play normal standard ideas, and we can even go for queenside castling. If he goes bishop g4, well, I would go d4 immediately. We're not afraid to sacrifice. And one idea we see a lot in these lines is when they take on d4, you've got to decide what you do. And in these lines where black's playing quite weirdly at the start, your two options are either queen takes, I feel, but I wouldn't want to go queen takes if my queen gets attacked. Even that's okay. But the other option is playing this Danish gambit way, opening up the lines, allowing our queen coming to b3 and trying to accelerate our piece development. If black plays this other pawn move, h6, to stop any of these moves, well, now, of course, we go d4. And given a chance, we are now going to take on e5 and take on f7. Tactically, that's something you always watch out for. Always watch out for this idea of opening up the d file and taking on f7. This is a key idea that can work very well. If black takes on d4, simply taking here is okay, not a problem. It's a good version of the Philidor because you've got this tempo while black's got that tempo. And I think bishop c4, a good developing move, is much better. But if you want to play in this slightly more adventurous way, then c3 is the way to go and to keep playing in this exciting manner. So we'll leave it there because all of these ideas after bishop c4 are leaving black in trouble. I think he's got to play bishop e7 to stop knight g5, and we'll have a look at knight f6 as well in the forthcoming video, so you know what to do against this d6 move, which I think you'll be very happy to see with our response, bishop c4 being your weapon of choice.